So I know we talk a lot about how variable shooting is superior in a ton of ways to block shooting, but this is just one of those examples where there are really no black or white areas in basketball. It's pretty much all gray area, right? It's an art and a science. Yes, science may say that variable shooting is better for the majority of skills, situations, circumstances, but you start to figure out some things as you get experience that are kind of on the art side, right? They go against what your standard science would say. So, for example, just had a kid come in, just finished a session here. His practice went over. He was doing a ton of sprints. It was kind of late in the week. It's a Thursday. Body's kind of beat up, but he's feeling like his shot's not great. And we got about 30 minutes, right? Started off with some variable stuff and then started to realize, like, look, man, I'm not going to play into my ego or my pride. I'm going to do what I think would be best for me, both skill-wise, building skill, and psychologically if I were in his situation. And I think that's block shooting, right? No, it's not just, all right, you're going to stand in the corner and shoot 20 shots, make 20 shots, or shoot on the shooting gun. There are ways that we can make this more challenging and devote more attention to it to actually get a better result from it. But I do think there are some reasons that this block shooting can work. Number one being, especially if you're standing in one place, you're getting less total work, right? You don't have to be running around. You don't have to be constantly, sprinting from spot to spot and shot to shot. You're saving your energy, which is big in this situation, especially for a circumstance like this where you're tired, the legs are dead. You're not going to be fully engaged. You may not even be able to go full speed. So I think that's huge as well. Just more reps with less work. Repetition is key at the end of the day. Yes, we want to get repetition without repetition. In other words, every rep we want it to be different. But at the same time, we have to continue to strengthen our motor patterns by providing it and nourishing it with repetition. So I think that's key. Number two is that there are some things that science can't explain, that we can't really explain. And this kind of comes down to like the placebo effect, right? As basketball players, we all kind of instinctively understand that there's some value in block shooting. Just seeing a bunch of shots go in or standing in one place and making some shots, I think it can be very valuable. Even if a player just thinks it's valuable, that perceived notion of improvement is huge. It's something that can get players better, whether it's building confidence, whether it's, a number of reasons, regardless, even if it's completely unexplainable. If, players do this and they feel like they're getting better, especially as we're working towards the season, we can't deny the placebo effect. I'm quick to at times. I'm quick to say, nah, screw that. The science says variable shooting is always better, but I think at the end of the day, we all instinctively know that sometimes there is a place for block shooting. And number three, like I mentioned, as we are getting close to the season, as people are starting to work for playing time, psychological momentum is a consideration, right? When something is going well, it's going well, you start to build up this, what we call psychological momentum, right? So each rep that goes well, you are building that on top of the other. Eventually you get to a point where now you're feeling really good confidence-wise. And this is another thing that I kind of have a hard time justifying with science, because confidence it's tough to say that it's that temporary, I guess. But it's one of those things that just you feel it. You feel it when you're training, you feel it when you're playing, as a player starts to develop that confidence, and that's kind of where the art comes in. But there are some considerations. I think, again, we can't just keep it so simple to the point where a player is just shooting over and over and over again. So for example, one of the drills that we did was they would be shooting from 5 spots, right? Start in the corner. You got to make 3 at each spot. So 3 at the corner, 3 at the wing, top of the key, and then the other 2 on the other side without missing 2 in a row. So now instead of shooting in a pressureless environment with no constraints on it, with no attention really being devoted, now every single shot becomes clutch, because if you miss 2 of them in a row, then you got to go back to the last spot. Drill took probably 15-20 minutes to get through, and I think that was one of the best things that could have happened, simply because every shot started to become a little bit fatigued, a little bit anxious. He started overthinking it. He was still probably making more than he would have in a really variable setting. There was some variability because he was moving spot to spot after 3. But those are the kind of constraints or rules or additions that we can put into these block-ish shooting drills that can really get good value. So it's almost like a hybrid between block and variable. You know, keeping score, making sure that they get a certain amount out of 10 or out of 5. Even having them move just slightly, like elbow to elbow, so they're still shooting the same distance, very similar shot, but it's just a little bit of variability. And then ultimately also just having conversations with your athletes, right? If that's something that they feel like is gonna make them better, that could be a really good way to go, even if you're like, nah, the science doesn't say that. Again, I'm a big science guy. I'm a huge proponent of variable shooting 95% of the time. But I do think there are times that we can add in some certain rules or constraints to block shooting, and that it can be very valuable in the right circumstances. So again, that's the art of coaching. It's a science, but it's also an art. We have to be able to combine the two, read situations, read circumstances, read athletes, and that's how we're eventually going to get the best results.